This is Pulse 95. You're listening to the Eyes On podcast.
It starts with a book. Eyes On with Aisha Al-Mazmi, live from the Sharjah International Book Fair at the Expo Center, Sharjah.
I'm gonna admit that I got a little bit, very excited when I found out about our next guest, Pedro Uría-Recio, who's an international best-selling author and AI expert, who's a former McKinsey consultant and chief AI officer. And it wasn't the fact because I always talk about artificial intelligence on Eyes On, even though we're not the Future Talk show, but I do talk about it a lot. But also, there are some very interesting niches that you touch upon in your book, Pedro. But first of all, welcome to Sharjah and welcome to Eyes On.
Hi Aisha, it's great to be here with you in Sharjah in Pulse 95. Thank you very much.
First of all, before we get deep into it, we need the definition of artificial intelligence from you.
Well, so artificial intelligence is a collection of technology that performs activities that only humans have traditionally performed, like language, like identifying objects in images, like making calculations, reasoning, right? So it's a collection of these technologies.
And your book, How Will AI Shape Our World? I found it very interesting that you use the word shape rather than aid or be part of our future. So how will artificial intelligence shape our future?
Well, I think artificial intelligence is something that is going to completely change society in the next few decades, and it's also going to change human beings because it can be applied. Artificial intelligence can be applied to biology, right? Can be applied to cure a lot of diseases, right? There are going to be some utopian scenarios, there are going to be dystopian scenarios, and people are going to be in the middle between some utopian and dystopian scenarios. It's not all going to be beautiful, there will be challenges as well, but what is for sure is that it's going to impact jobs, it's going to impact education, it's going to impact society, it's going to impact political systems, it's going to impact society at large. It's one of the, possibly the most transformational technology that we have seen, probably since the discovery of fire, I would say.
That's a very bold statement, saying that I honestly, because artificial intelligence has been, I'm going to say, slowly changing the way we look at things, and people have been using it or in some ways also misusing it. But your book is, I'm going to say, making some grand statements, especially when we go back to, let's talk about biology a little bit, because your book mentions how AI-based societies in the future are going to be post-human, or can I safely say also transhuman, in the way that it's all about the human body as well as artificial intelligence working together, somewhat similar or akin to cyborgs. And we're talking not from a science fiction point of view, but a true scientific and very realistic point of view as well.
This is a possibility. There is a branch of biology that is called synthetic biology. And synthetic biology is about synthesizing DNA, synthesizing proteins. Those proteins can be medicines, right? Synthesizing organs that you are later going to insert into somebody if you're going to do a transplant, right? So synthetic biology, traditionally, you have to design those proteins, you have to design that DNA, but generative AI allows you to design it much faster. So there are scientists that are creating proteins. The Nobel Prize this year in physics went to the people that created an artificial intelligence algorithm that predicts how the shape of a protein will be, because the medical properties of a protein depend on the shape, right? So there are many, many possibilities. And those possibilities include modifying the DNA of human beings to be more immune to cancer, to live longer. And that has positive and negative implications, right? So, of course, people could be healthier. The negative side of that is that, well, at the beginning at least, it's going to be expensive. Not everybody will want to do it, sometimes because people just don't want, for philosophical reasons, for ethical reasons, for religious reasons. Many people will not want to do that. At the risk of that is that we might have a society in two speeds, a society that has two castes of human beings, those that have been modified and those that have not been modified, right? This is not science fiction. There is synthetic biology is something that, well, I mean, just to say that they won the Nobel Prize this year,
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to also emphasize as well, that it feels very science fiction-y, but it's not. We are slowly moving into where these questions are being brought up from an ethics point of view and also from a scientific point of view as well. And in a way, when we talk about these synthetic changes to humans, and especially when we talk about post-humanism or transhumanism, where it just takes away the idea of humans being the best being in terms of it's the top of the food chain, it is the most intelligent, or to an extent, the most intelligent as we see it. But from beyond that centric view as well, when you take from another point of view, with artificial intelligence and the idea of also super intelligence with a computer, is that going to be like an issue? Like you said, there's going to be a problem with people accepting it and not accepting it. But does that mean that it is going to be the next step for artificial intelligence and robotics, that next thing is going to be a super intelligence, and that is where we're going to be having a bit of an ethical, moral dilemma as well?
There are a lot of ethical implications, right? So the next step after generative AI is creating a form of AI that can think in general terms, right? Not only generating text or not only interpreting images, which is what we have right now, but thinking in general, like a human person. We call that artificial general intelligence. And there are a lot of startups, some of them in the UAE, that are working on that are trying to make large language models be able to apply logic and have the reasoning of a human being. And there are different technologies for that. So that's basically creating an AI that is as intelligent as a human. The next step to that, which sounds as science fiction, but believe it or not, there some people are working on that, is superintelligence. And superintelligence will be creating something that is more intelligent than a human. Of course, there are huge implications, and one of the important questions here is, well, if you create something that is more intelligent than humanity, how are you going to manage it? How are you going to control it, right? And that's why I'm saying it's not science fiction, because OpenAI is talking about that. OpenAI has an approach that they call super alignment to align superintelligence. Anthropic, another AI company, have another approach that is called constitutional AI. This is something that the top AI companies in the world are already thinking about. It's not science fiction. I'm not saying it's going to happen immediately. It might take decades to happen, but this is something that we have to be prepared for.
And you also mentioned from the utopias and some dystopias happening. And if we learned anything from science fiction itself, going back to that, a lot of times when we, like you said, when we have something that is more important, or sorry, more intelligent than a human, you cannot manage it, things go awry, things go chaotic. So how will the utopias with these alongside AIs or superintelligence prosper? Meanwhile, the dystopias will, crash and burn. How will that happen?
I mean, that's the key question, right? At this moment, a lot of the thinking process about how to handle AI is done at the World Economic Forum. So they have a number of proposals about how to handle that. One of the things that I do in this book is I criticize all the proposals, I criticize all the common thinking about how to handle AI, particularly the World Economic Forum, and I try to propose alternative views to that. So the World Economic Forum is talking about universal basic income. It's talking about what they call cross-stakeholder collaboration, which at the end of the day results in the build-up of monopolies. It's talking about increasing regulation, particularly when it comes to misinformation and disinformation. Part of what I do in the book is trying to analyze whether this is going to set up in the right path, or on the contrary, this is going to set up closer to this portfolio of dystopian futures where we wouldn't want to be, right?
Absolutely. And if we take a step back and come to the present, for example, one of the biggest, let's say, conversations when it comes to negatively criticizing artificial intelligence, and this also can bring also a question of humans and creativity, because OpenAI usually takes, let's say sometimes, in some cases, quote unquote, steals ideas from here and there. So even from that point of view, how can we go past that, one of the biggest questions of how can AI think independently when right now It is basically taking a lot of information from the internet, from a lot of sources that people might have not necessarily given their approval to do so.
Yeah, so AI learns from data, and that is data that is available, and sometimes this data that is owned is the copyright of somebody else, right? There have been several actors in the US, in India, that have sued OpenAI for using their images, for using their video to train algorithms, right? At the end of the day, artificial intelligence, its data, its own data, in order to keep learning, right? There is an approach, an alternative to that, which is using synthetic data to train artificial intelligence. And synthetic data is data that it's not real data, but it looks like real. Of course, it has positive sides and negative sides. So this is data, for example, is very much used in self-driving car companies. In order to create a self-driving car algorithm, you need hours and hours of video. Not every car manufacturer have so many hours of video, so they use synthesized video. They use synthetic video that has been itself created by AI to train the algorithm that is going to learn how to drive, right? So this is a possibility as well. Of course, it comes with the implication that if the data that you are building your algorithm on is not real, how are you going to know that whatever that algorithm produces is real or not real? How are you going to differentiate reality from fake news, from manipulation? And that is another of the many question marks that artificial intelligence is going to bring to society in the next 10, 20 years.
And in a way, because in my opinion, in my humble opinion, as somebody who is just watching everything and is far from an AI expert, I feel that humans are misusing AI at this time. And I feel like maybe AI should be applied in different places. What do you say about that? Like maybe beyond, like ChatGPT is fantastic. It's helpful when, for example, people use it as a source of inspiration, but people are copy pasting, for example. So would that be considered a misuse, or is it just normal that we make mistakes until we get to the right place?
Every technology can be used for good, and every technology can be used for bad. We are at the very beginning of artificial intelligence, so we just don't know how to use it, right? That is particularly important when it comes to regulating AI. One of the things that I argue in the book is that the European Union has regulated AI too early, right? I believe that Middle Eastern countries, in particular the Emirates and Saudi Arabia, are taking the right approach to the regulation of AI, which is, sitting there, looking, supervising, seeing what is happening, intervening only when it is really necessary, learning, and get ready to deploy that regulation when we are sure about the implications that that's going to have on society, right? So the question of regulation is very difficult because every country has a different operating system. Every country has a different culture. Every country has a different way of working. And the idea of having a worldwide regulation for AI, which is, by the way, one of the things that the World Economic Forum is proposing, it's something that I don't see it really fitting, and particularly because we just don't know how to handle AI. So far, we have to learn, and every country will be learning at different speeds.
I can see that absolutely, as people are, even with the digital, the digital confines, the people have different accesses to computers and PCs and whatnot. Some people have more access to the internet, are on the internet a lot longer than others, so even then people will be learning at different paces, and same goes with countries with the digital divide and whatnot. And
what is more important when it comes to regulation is that the probability of regulating it wrong is very high, because we just don't understand it, right? So just from a diversification point of view, it's better to let every country regulate it separately, differently. Some of them will make mistakes, others will not. When a country makes mistakes, maybe later they will correct that mistake, right? If we just take one regulation for the whole world, and that regulation is wrong, then we are all wrong.
We're all wrong, and we will need to fix that as soon as possible. And then I really want to also go back to the point that you made at the very beginning, and also you make a point of in your book as well, in several chapters, which is when AI causes or would be a part of a war, or basically a political unrest in a way, and perhaps even economic unrest. And how will AI be part of it? Will it be the start of it, or will it help it, or will it stop it?
Well, there have always been wars, and there will always be.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And AI will be part of that.
Mm-hmm.
In one of the chapters of the book, I describe the history of artificial intelligence applied to the military, to drones, and also to robots on the ground, which are these dogs, mechanical dogs. You have probably seen them in videos that can be used for military purposes, unfortunately, right? So that's very difficult to stop. There have been people that have been thinking about how a war in the future would look like. And in the book, I have collected some ideas of different authors that have been thinking about it. And one of the ideas is that if in the future artificial intelligence starts becoming more similar to us, too similar to us, a lot of people are going to become uncomfortable, are going to say, hey, I mean, this is not nice anymore, so it's good that we have deployed this and developed this technology, but now it's taking jobs. It's becoming too similar, and I don't feel comfortable anymore, I want to stop it. There will be other people that will say, no, we want to continue. We think this is the next stage in human evolution. We want to continue. We think this is important for humanity, and that could be a conflict, right? And I could see that happening. I mean, of course, it's very difficult to predict the future, but that is one of the things that we should be careful, because we should not let one important part of society aside and against AI. We need to keep together, right?
We need to keep together, and honestly, this chat, Pedro, has been enlightening, to say the least.
Thank you.
And your book as well. Again, I got to see just a little bit of it on the internet, just looking through just the chapters themselves are eye-grabbing, and I urge everybody to just check it out, just as a way to see the possibilities of the future and learn a little bit about how will artificial intelligence shape our world, especially as we're embarking into this journey alongside artificial intelligence. So, Pedro, thank you so much.
Thank you, Aisha.
So much.
It has been great to be here with you and with the audience. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And what do you have in store for us here at the Sharjah International Book Fair? Where can we find your book, for example? And will you be having any panel discussions or chats?
I have a panel discussion tomorrow at 7 p.m.
This is Pulse 95. Tune in live every weekday from 4 p.m.